Hey, everybody, on your marks, get set. Let's go. What's going on, everyone? How you doing? Welcome to another installment, yet another edition of Work Your Career Wednesday. As always, I'm Bradley Clark, thrilled, honored, and blessed that you decided to tune in and join us today. And I got to tell you, guys, we are so thrilled with the way the audiences have been growing. Everyone is so blessed because of you, and I just thank you. I can't thank you enough. We keep growing exponentially, person by person, and it's just proof positive that God is good. So without further ado, and the thank yous to all of you, wanted to get to our show. I got a great guest today. Me and this guy have become fast friends. Actually, he got on my radar because of Marty King Young. And all of you remember her from her being on our show, just a couple weeks ago. And she said, I got this guy. You got to talk to him. Let me tell you a little bit more about him. All right. Hold on. I just got this new phone and it doesn't have switches and stuff. But anyway. My guest is a versatile Nashville-based rock pop artist, author, husband, father, and self-proclaimed dork. We'll have to talk to him about that. What exactly that means, because the whales might want their term back. That's a good joke. Well, maybe. I think it is anyway. He brings a unique blend of humor and heartfelt insight into his work. He's also the creator of God Jots, a series exploring the depths of love, compassion, joy, and human connection. And through his engaging storytelling and candid reflection, he invites audiences to laugh and cry and perhaps even learn something unexpected. We're going to get into this too. He's an aspiring compassionist. I love that. Compassionist. He strives to navigate life's challenges with grace and empathy, all while sharing his journey with a dose of wit and wisdom. Everybody, please make welcome my friend, Andrew Bowen.
Hey. How's it going?
What's going, man? It's going okay. It's going okay.
Good.
As you know, we've been doing a little car shopping lately.
Yes. And speaking of, I prayed earlier about that for you. I hope that worked. I hope it helped.
So glad you did. Well, here's the thing. I will go into it offline, but we ended up getting with this guy who has a car lot, and he's a friend of one of Erica's doctors, right? We have way too many doctor friends. I'm just saying. We'll get into that later.
Maybe not a terrible thing to have if you think about it, but
I mean, if the proverbial hits the fan, probably is a good idea. But we called him up, and there was a couple cars that we were looking at that he had online, and he flat out said, "Listen, you're a friend of the docs. I can't sell you those cars." I was like, okay. That's so cool. You know what I mean? Because, we're in an interesting time. I mean, today, if you saw the market tanking, and there's a lot of plans that are being rearranged. But, one thing about it is God when God brings you to something, sometimes he has you pause. And so it's just been an interesting day. How are you doing, my friend? I want to get into that compassionist thing. That's pretty dope.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I'm doing fine. I mean, it's been a beautiful day. I definitely went outside, got a walk, did a little exercise, worked on some other projects. Feeling good, actually.
I love it. I love it. So, one thing I want people to do is go on your website.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because and specifically, obviously, to see you, right?
Right.
But if you go to enderbowen.com, for phenomenal site, by the way. I really do love it. But the thing I'm getting you see how I'm getting very TV interviewer right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool. enderbowen.com. If you ever have to go online, you really want to go to enderbowen.com, because at enderbowen.com you will find true happiness.
Yes, true happiness indeed.
Your merch is phenomenal, and I want to get into this actually too. I mean, you are if you saw the title to this, it says Rockstar and podcast host Ender Bowen. I think I love your music, man. I really do.
Oh, really? Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I mean,
it's always good to hear. You and my mom.
Dude. All right. Are you born in October? Because we're gonna have to.
I was born in February. I'm an Aquarius.
We because I say the same thing. I love it. But your album is just great. Honestly, it's wonderful. I love the tracks on there. But I kept telling the audience, like a while back, I said, I've gotten a lot of great reviews, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over the years from music, and been doing pretty well with reviews here. But I will never forget, I was reviewed by this UK. They were called Cross Rhythms. It was a magazine for Christian artists, and it's called Cross Rhythms, and pretty actually big publication in the UK. Yeah. And I didn't get a bad review. I didn't get a great one, and it stuck with me. And I remember that almost word for word. What you have done is you have taken those reviews and you've put them on t-shirts.
Oh yeah. You're talking about the sort of mean stuff.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a few of these. I am. I think they're absolutely fantastic.
I think Marty got one actually too when I was first.
Did she really?
Yeah.
The one sounds like a dying cat playing a kazoo. I love that one. The what was the one that I really liked? Absolute trash.
Absolute trash. Yeah. Sometimes it's the simplest.
I need that shirt.
Yeah.
For so many different reasons.
It just came about because, criticism's hard for any artist, for any creative. And I knew that if I took those things too seriously, I would have a hard time with that, just like any other creative probably would. And I basically said, nah, I'm not going to let it do that to me. They're just words, and B, the problem isn't me. It's usually them. And they're just, they're getting it out and launching it at somebody that they don't even know. And maybe took 5 seconds to hear something and made a judgment about it. And it was just me taking the really good ones, the ones that I genuinely laugh at, and putting them on t-shirts just as a way of saying, like, your words can't hurt me. I took the words you said about me and I put them on my shirt, and I'm wearing them everywhere in front of people. So good luck, hurting my feelings.
It's so good, and such a absolute just fantastic marketing, but at the same time, I just love it. And it also says something to other artists too. It's like one thing that I tell, different friends of mine or artists that I've worked with over the years. It's like, if you take yourself too seriously,
Mm-hmm.
it's you're not gonna have a good time of it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I always
when
say
it,
take the work seriously, but don't take yourself seriously.
yeah. Well, I mean, when you're talking about actors, right? The
Mhm.
the job is not the job you get. That's a bonus for the job of auditioning,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Essentially. That's a good way of putting it.
you know, and so I just, and then if you're in the public eye in any way, shape, or form, then obviously suddenly we
Terrifying.
become free. Well, we become free game.
Yep.
And so, even if they haven't spent a cent of, I've spent my time, therefore I will judge you and tell you you're
Mm-hmm.
terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
the
sometimes
other
they don't
one
even do
that
that. Sometimes they don't even spend their time. They just knee jerk. There you go.
I would love, give me the bad ones too. I mean, I need help
Yeah.
paying these car payments.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I actually
but
tell people when they make the comments, if it's really good like that I'm going to put it on a t-shirt, I actually say that's going on a t-shirt. Thank you. And it
thank
just,
you very much. The
well
other
done.
thing, the other one that I really liked is you in the cowboy hat,
Oh yeah.
like the
Yeah.
one
The
you're
red
wearing,
one.
the red one. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that.
I want to get a black version of that done for you. And I've been trying to play around with it, but, having a hard
I'm
time
so
getting that to work and make it
excited.
look good.
Well, when that happens, I'm
Mhm.
telling you, I am so thrilled for it to happen. I cannot
Good.
wait.
Good.
I
Good.
cannot
I
wait.
appreciate that. Thank you.
But so anyway, I wanted to talk to you real quick. There's so much to your story. There's so many
Mhm.
layers.
Yeah.
We were talking last night. We're talking like 2.5 hours,
Yeah,
and
we
there were
were.
part
Yeah.
of it, and there were part of it. I'm like, no, save that for the show. Save it for the
Mhm.
show. I just feel like, because we were talking last night about how we're in a situation, we're in a time that really dictates truth, whatever that
Mhm.
truth is. And,
Yeah.
I think both of us come from that old school where, you don't really talk about that stuff. You talk about your wins and, and all
Mhm.
of that. I think too, though, we've gotten also in a day and age where we're, people are playing the victim Olympics, and
Yeah.
in church circles it's like the testimony Olympics.
Yep. Mhm.
So, and that's not what you do at all.
No.
But I wanted
Try not
you,
to.
you don't do it. I wanted you to go over and essentially, you know, tell your story, tell your testimony,
All right.
because I know people are going to be touched by it.
Well, gosh, yeah, like you said, there's many layers, so it's to kind of find a through line is interesting. Uh, I think it's a couple different things. Very
Mhm.
very young age, I saw Van Halen's Jump on MTV and saw David Lee Roth and said, I want to be that. I want to be Rockstar.
Right.
And so I spent from there forward wanting to be a rock star. Everything I was doing was like, be a rock star, be a rock star. And I call myself a rock star now or a rock pop artist. It's true, but I'm also kind of being cheeky about it
Mhm.
because, I like to play around with that kind of stuff and be self-deprecating. Um, but then there was also that part of me that was interested in God. And
Mhm.
where I grew up, it was I think the way I was talking to you about it last night is it felt judgy, and maybe that wasn't fair. It was more like it didn't speak to me, right?
Mhm.
If God is supposed to be about joy and all this other stuff, where is it? Because I'm not seeing it in this building, I'm not seeing it in this room, and I'm not seeing it on your faces. And so it was kind of like one of those things we talked about authenticity. And I'm not saying that was inauthentic, but if you're telling me one thing and I'm seeing another, even at a young age, it just didn't connect with me. So it was one of those things though where I was always interested in God. I was always interested in the question. There was always that piece of me that was like, well, if good is a real thing, then humans can't have created it, right? Because then we can just reinvent it however we want and move the goalposts all the time. So that was always, I mean, even before I was 10, stuff like that was in my head. And over time, uh, I still had that discomfort with all that stuff, but God knew me and He knew my heart. He knew who I was, and, kept after me. And he kept after me by, that whole thing about wanting to be a rock star. He put, artists like U2 in front of me that talked about God, but they weren't doing it in such a, right in your face way. It was like, dig a little, like, you like the music, cool, dig a little deeper, get some of the meaning behind it. And I loved the way God works like that. Sometimes it's not overt. It's kind of like, did you like this little piece of a thing? Come on
It's
over
like
here. I'll show
covert.
you some. It's a little bit covert, but not quite. It's still like I'm still there, but you're still curious. And through U2, I got into C.S. Lewis and Screw Tape Letters. Mere Christianity was probably one of the biggest things because it spoke. God knew I was analytical. He knew I loved, making sense of things. And C.S. Lewis did that easily, and it actually made sense of. He talks about almost the exact same thing I'd had in my head since I was a kid, which was that whole, good exists as something. It's that voice in your head. What is that? It can't be human created. And Mere Christianity almost spelled that right out for me. And I was like, oh, uh-huh. And I took some, where I went to college, I took a couple sort of academic Christian courses, one on the New Testament that, while it was about kind of very, very liberal and left leaning kind of stuff, it actually made me believe it more because I like history and I like how things happen as they happen. And making sense of that was a lot of fun. And I just went, wow, I love this stuff. Like, so it helped me to dig deeper into God in a different way. And none of it actually contradicted anything I thought. It actually, in a strange way, made it feel stronger. And then the other thing I was telling you about last night is I'm a big pro wrestling fan. My stepfather, when he came into our lives when I was very, very young, like 10 or so, got us into that. And my favorite wrestler was Shawn Michaels. I loved his charisma. I always wanted that charisma, and I could never really figure it out. And he was just so much fun to watch. He was amazing. But as most people, if you're a wrestling fan, know, he was a bit of a jerk backstage. And he kind of had a semi-retirement, got injured, and then he was born again, came back, and he was this completely different guy. And that was important to me because part of what I was going through as I was a teenager and a little bit through college too was I wasn't sure if I wanted to, commit to this stuff, like call myself a Christian and do this and do that because I saw what it looked like, growing up there, that lack of joy, that you pretending to be kind of feeling like you're pretending to be something you're not, that kind of thing. I didn't want to change me in that way. So when I saw Shawn Michaels come back and be himself, but a better version of himself, I just went, oh, aha. And so, all those little things, like it wasn't like I had a conversion overnight, but it was like these little things that God kept putting in front of me going, I know who you are. So check this out. It's almost like when you have a friend who says, hey, I know you like progressive music. So here's some Edgar Winter, or I know you like ambient music. Check out Brian Eno, that kind of a thing. It was almost like God was doing that with me and saying, I know you like this. So check out this. I know you like this. So check out this. And without even saying, you're going to find me in there. It's like, you go through and you're finding him in there. And I suppose in a way that's what I'm trying to do with my entire platform. But with God Jots in particular, I know there's got to be a lot of maybe on the fence. Do I or don't I want to commit Christians, or people who are new to it, or a lot of people who are just completely overwhelmed by all the scripture and dogma and everything else, which still even to this day overwhelms me. I just want to talk about it like my experience was, what I get from it, which sometimes misses the mark. But that's what I think is beautiful about it to me, is just being honest about it, being authentic about it. And when I do or say something that doesn't quite get it right, I move forward and I learn. And to me, that's why I don't consider myself like an expert in this stuff. That's the other thing, is there's so many people out there who do these kinds of things to say, I'm an expert. Like, I'm going to make you with this and do that. But for me, it's about building a community and kind of spearheading that, right? That's why I have a community of little lights on Discord. That's why that's what I'm trying to do, is build a more compassionate world. And that's the God Juts thing happened. It was one of those things where God kind of was whispering in my ear, and then he was kind of nudging me a bit, and then he was kind of pushing me a bit, and then he was kind of smacking me in the face a bit, until I eventually went, all right. I'll write about this. I'll write what you're telling me to write. And so that's when I sat down and started doing that. And that started about 10 years ago. It really informed what I do with my music. I don't do praise music by any means, but my one of my latest albums, The Art of Tactful Procrastination, was about the struggle to realize your dreams, especially as you get older and, come into more adulting, more responsibilities. How do you balance that? What does it look like if you do, if you don't? What happens if you give up? What if you bite too hard into it? It doesn't answer any of those questions. It was just more about, again, compassion, like trying to relate to that experience through my own experience. And as you and I discussed, I don't really write for other people. I mean, I do if it hits me, like I told you my story about my friend who needed me to pray and the whole magic thing, magic in the world, miracles. Um, but I really write a lot of this stuff for me, and I do the music for me too, because sometimes I need reminders. Sometimes I'm struggling and trying to figure out how to get through it. And when I write it down, or when I do it in a podcast or something like that, it keeps me moving forward. And if it does that for me, at the end of the day, I just hope it does that for somebody else. If I can change one person's life, I always say, I might not be able to change the world, might not, like, some one person might not be able to change your life, but if I can change your next 5 minutes, then I can change the next 5 minutes after that. I can change the next 5 minutes after that. And I'm all about those little bite-sized things and trying to move forward, because I feel like my life has been a bite-sized aspect of conversion and learning. So,
Sure. Well,
boy, did I ramble.
no, not at all. I mean, it's a podcast.
I have a
That's what you're
tendency. I have
supposed
a
to do.
tendency.
You're supposed to do that. It's a show.
Yeah.
But I think one thing it's really important for people to understand too is that you're not coming on there um, as a theologian or
No.
a pastor or something like that, or someone like that. You're coming on as someone who's on their own journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And someone
And
who
so, yeah,
is fallible, it's,
sure.
I think that's what's important about it, because we all are. And
Yeah.
if that just gets the discussion going, then I think that's awesome, personally.
There's, and I think there's a time and place for that. And
Yeah.
it's awesome that there's also a time and place for the other as well.
Yeah.
But one thing that I don't see anywhere, and it has a lot to do with, like, for example, John Hagee, he would always tell young ministers, young pastors, never to tell your people. And I think there's a lot of truth to this as well, but you don't tell your people what you're going through. You tell your people what you've been through. And I think that has more to do and is more of a guidepost
Yeah.
for those in ministerial leadership. But one thing that I think is really interesting that you're doing is just that. I mean, you're still on your journey. We're all on our journey.
Yeah.
It would be one thing if you were coming on saying, again, being inauthentic or thinking you're authentic. That's another thing that we just love is when people they really think that they are a spiritual authority and haven't studied anything. And sometimes they have really great ideas, but the more you probe, the more you learn that, this is more of a rehab induced haze than it is
and
actual.
I don't sit down. I don't think at any point have I ever said I am a learned, I know all scripture and anything like that. For me, a lot of what I do is I really just distilled it down to a couple things. If good exists, then it must be something that isn't human. And that's part of why I believe in God in the first place. And the next part is just compassion. And for me, that's how I connect to Jesus. And that's really, I mean, you can say Jesus is love. I think God's love and Jesus, or I'm kind of explaining the different pieces here, but how I look at it, anyway, is that Jesus is compassion, the Holy Spirit is joy, and the Holy Spirit is love. And that's really, I mean, you can say Jesus is love. I think God's love and Jesus, or I'm kind of explaining the different pieces here, but how I look at it anyway, is that Jesus is compassion, the Holy Spirit is joy, and the Holy Spirit is love. So, you put all those things together, and that's kind of how it all happens. And for me, it's just a matter of, am I being compassionate or am I not? And if I'm being compassionate, then that's going to get me closer to where I think I'm supposed to be, in line with Jesus, in line with God, that kind of a thing. Um, and yeah,
Well,
yeah,
a lot of times too, when people come to the Lord, um, I always say, and I've seen this so many times, like
hmm
when gangbangers or you know people that have been in that life come to
yeah,
the Lord, you don't have a more down brother for Jesus.
hmm
And you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like it, man, they are soldiers
yeah, because they've gone through so much. Yeah,
right. And so they've seen that other side. They've seen,
hmm
you know, whether it was in the natural or in the spiritual, they've seen the demons, right? And
yeah,
and they are quite happy to be on the
mhm,
side, on Jesus' side,
yep,
you know. Excuse me. And so I really do love what you're doing. And again, not, and I want to make this very, very clear for the audience. You're not out there touting, you know, I'm a pastor, I'm a this,
mhm,
you're a musician,
yeah,
you're a creative, you're an artist, you're a dad
yeah,
that knows the Lord and is
hmm
striving every day to get to know him more.
hmm
Um,
hmm
you know, we were talking about it last night, and I've been watching that show House of David, and there was that one line when David's like, I don't get it, why me? And Samuel says, well, you pursue the Lord, and so the Lord pursued you.
hmm
And all too often I find that what the church has sort of become, and I love the church, don't get me wrong, I mean, everybody
hmm
knows I'm a preacher's kid and ministry and all that,
yeah,
but what we've allowed it in some ways to become is such a me-centric, Tony Robbins kind of living your best life,
hmm
you know, and and while that's true, right?
yeah,
That's the goal for individual. And it's so hard to explain, right?
hmm
Because you talk about how you pursue the Lord, and I've seen it. It's happened in my life where the more you pursue the Lord, the happier you are. Some
yeah,
trials, tribulations will come. I told you about the some tragic events with friends of ours,
hmm hmm
and to hear him say that God has given him a peace over that. And I
yeah,
don't want to be vague about it, but has to do with pretty tragic events in Detroit, um, involving his sister, brother-in-law, his niece, and his dad, and home invasions and stuff like that. And to hear him say that he has a peace about it
hmm
was amazing for me. Like, you have
yeah,
a piece about that? I don't have a piece about that. And you do? So the thing, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's so much about your happiness, my happiness. You want to have a better day, and it's hard to explain that the more you pursue the Lord,
hmm
uh foregoing your own happiness, foregoing, where that's not the center. What you
hmm
can get is not um the center of everything. And what's interesting about, let's say Christianity as a whole, it's the only religion where, practiced correctly, it's not about the person, it's about God.
hmm hmm
It's not about, and every other thing. I'm not knocking it, but it's very centered around, um, what the deity can do for them.
Mm-hmm.
If I do this, the deity will love me. If I do that, the deity will love me. And it's hard to say to somebody, because as humans, we are creatures of um, not habit, but of symbolism and
Yeah.
of ritual.
Yeah.
And to say to somebody that no, he loves you, you
Yeah.
know, and it's not that
That's
you
it.
have to do this. It's not that you have to pray. You're compelled to, because you feel it like that. So it's
Right.
really it's different. And I love the fact that as you're on your journey,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're bringing other people with you. You know,
Yeah.
here's what I'm going through. How about you? You know, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and you said something there about you know, how you're compelled to pray, reach out, whatever it is, to the Lord. And I think that's where, to me, not just living, you know, for God, for the Lord, but just living in general needs to be something you do on purpose. And
That's right.
you know, you don't just get through it. Like, do it on purpose. Like, you are. I wrote about this a while back, that, you know, why, if there is a God, why are some people born with money and some people aren't? It's like, well, because you're expected to do something with it. Like, that's it. You know, you don't necessarily have to do everything in the world with it, but whether you're given money, whether you're given a cardboard box, you're expected to do something with that. That's how you're compelled to move forward. And for me, being like active in that, that's why I talk a lot about how people talk about tolerance. And I'm like, well, tolerance, when was the last time you said you tolerated something and that was a good thing?
It was a good
Like,
thing.
yeah. You
Right.
never say like that. I can't tolerate that anymore. Like, I'm not going to tolerate that guy. It's so dismissive, right? It's inactive, or it's passive, I should say. People talk about empathy, and I'm like, well, empathy is something that I think really just exists in you as a person, and it just comes out. And a lot of that can be based on your experiences. My wife is an empath, and a lot of that has to do with her childhood and everything. But compassion for me is like, I just think of it like, come to passion, do the work, move towards it. And that's why I say, you know, love is a decision. It is a choice you make, because if you're making a choice about being compassionate and getting to know a person like God knows them, that's another thing I look at. Well, if God knows people, then I should know people. Or, you know, if God loves people, even this person that I can't figure out, why would anybody love this person? There must be something to love. So I'm going to look for that. And I think that's what I talk about, is things like that. That's why I don't get so deep into scripture and dogma. Someone else can do that. Someone who knows it better. And as a teacher, I'm just trying to live it and talk about that living it. But at the same time, you have to have a foundation and standards by which to go. And for me, I think I pretty much just described it. It's having compassion and moving with that compassion. And like we talked about yesterday, compromise, come to promise. So you put that effort and that work into it, and you actively move into it. And I think it's hard. You know, I'm having a hard time finding an audience, because I think a lot of people, I'm not judging it, I understand it. I think a lot of people are more comfortable being angry and hating their own personal boogeyman, whoever they are. Whether it's a politician or someone you know down the street, it's very uncomfortable to move out of that and do something different, because you're not used to it. That's number one. Number two is it's work. It really is work. And to be fair, it's 24/7 society. Who has time for that? But I kind of look at it like, if you want a better life and existence, you need to start looking for the better in people and not using that energy to look for the bad. And to me, you're going to see God when you do that. That's just how I look at it.
It's really interesting when you sort of look at like different, you know, scientific predictions,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or you know, all sorts of stuff where the outcome is always terrible. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because that's
it's
sensational.
always terrible.
Yeah.
But they really believe it. I mean, beyond what they're trying to sell, I don't think some of them really aren't trying to sell anything. They just, I don't know. I think we always go to the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And as a people, especially I would say Christians, I think that Christians have had their heart broken so many times by so many people they look up to, so many, failings, and now I just couldn't believe this. I found this was last night. There's a pastor, calls himself a pastor, that he preaches more against the president than he does for Jesus. And I'm just like, how, dude?
That's why are you putting your energy into that?
Why are you putting your exactly? So it tells me, well, put your energy into good things, but it tells me that you're more interested in maybe clicks. Maybe you're tapping into that audience that is feeding off of hatred of whatever it is. Does it have to be him? But it could be anything. And to your point,
or maybe you have your own personal agenda.
Well, 1,000%.
Yeah, and you're using this platform to push that agenda. And I've had people come to me and say, like, you're using psychology and all these other things to push a agenda. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not shy about. I don't back off of that. My agenda, literally. Yeah. Do I want to sell T-shirts and sell books and sell advertising on my podcast so that I can make money and do this for a living, so I can do more of it and help people, but also be compensated for it? Yes, I'm a human being and I need to pay the bills, right? The more I can do that, the better. I'm not looking to be, as that Rockstar thing, right? Back before I don't think I told you about this last night. I might be going off on a new train of thought here, but I actually had a recording contract when I first moved I first moved to Nashville in 2006 to get away from all that lack of access to anything. Mm-hmm. And within a few months, I had a recording contract. And of course, I was like, yeah, of course I do. I'm Ender Bowen. I'm going to be a huge rock star.
Right.
And that went nowhere because I kind of looked at things with these starry eyes and looked at it all wrong. And they had no idea what they were doing. It's almost like the moment I signed my name to the paper, they had no interest in me anymore. Never recorded anything, never did anything. They kind of moved.
You get an advance though? You get an advance?
No, it was going to
be. You didn't get an advance?
No, but see, I thought
that's good, of course though. That's a good thing.
Of course I'm going to get a contract because I'm, God's gift to music. And small fish in a little pond big fish in a little pond is kind of how I felt. And it was one of those things where after a couple of years, so I had recorded my own albums before that. Like, it was a lot of work and I had to, having to do that. I'd done like 3 or 4 albums before that, but they didn't do anything with me. And when I asked for my release, they still had the rights to some of my music, some of my best music. Thank God they collapsed a couple of years later and all that reverted back to me. But it was like a really good lesson. It was God kind of teaching me, like, hold your horse there, buddy. And I kind of got out of music for 5 or 6 years, maybe. I almost didn't think I wanted to do it anymore. And then, that's how I got into film and television. And then my daughter was born in 2014 here in Nashville. And it was one of those things where I went, wow, like, I moved to Nashville to do music. My daughter was just born in it. Like, I never would have even conceived that I would live in Nashville, much less be anywhere near it. Here I am looking at her birth certificate, born in Nashville. And I'm like,
it's kind of cool.
Here for a reason. There's something I'm still supposed to be doing here. And it was one of those things where my growing belief in God and compassion, everything else, and this new sort of take on what I wanted to do with music kind of coagulated. And it turned into not just the music thing, but doing music these days, you can't just be so and so from somewhere doing this kind of music. You kind of have to have a story. And for
Right.
me, doing God Jots and Joy Commission was me telling my story as kind of a launching point into my music initially. But then it all kind of was like, well, now the music's feeding this, and now that's feeding this, and it's like a whole platform of stuff. So,
so
I have no idea where I was going with that.
no, that's
out with a
great.
purpose.
It's interesting because now that you are pretty much an out Christian in the music business.
Yep, I came out.
I mean, you'd be you'd be surprised. Maybe even there's a band member of Slayer who's born again. Who knows? But anyway,
yeah.
But what's it like doing? Being in Nashville, being a secular artist. Does it play a role? Does it matter?
I don't.
How do you feel?
Because I think at the end of the day, what you're always going to have people that hate what you do, as exemplified by my T-shirts. I'm not wearing one today, but and you're always going to have people, hopefully, that love what you do. And chances are you're going to have more people that hate what you do than love what you do. But I can't remember who said it. Probably several people have that. If people hate if you're getting a lot of hate with what you're doing, then you're probably doing something right. It's to me, it's just a matter of be authentic. And it took a long time for me to figure out what that even means. Cause like that same album I was talking about, The Art of Tactful Procrastination, I came up with like an alter ego, who was like this, he acted like this self-involved rock star. I called him Facade. And I did some like little vignettes with him and that kind of thing. And it just didn't hit the mark. Like nobody got it. They probably would have got it if they had known who I was to begin with and had followed my music for years. But I kind of forgot that even though I'd been making music for 20 years, hardly anybody knew that. So it was one of those things where, but it was good. My wife and I got to tell you, my wife and I, we always joke through music, through anything in entertainment, music and television. We always joke that we learned everything we do through the School of What Not to Do 101. It's always we ended up underneath the wrong people who taught us the wrong things, and we always had that little voice in our head that said, oh, "That doesn't seem right." God probably, and that again was one of those things where I had this great idea. I want to get artsy and fun with it, and it was fun, but nobody got it, and I was like, "All right, well, I did that wrong." So next time around, we're going to loosen it up a bit. And that's, I think you might've seen some of my earlier videos. I had like these clear goggles with some art.
Oh yeah.
I loved that idea, but doing it in a podcast was distracting. It made me stand out, but it made the lighting really difficult. And B, I think it just confused people. And I got a few comments about that. Like, hey, I kind of like what you're saying, but I can't stop looking at your shades. And now I've lost my train of whatever you're talking about. And I was like, what? I need to bring this back and be the simple things. I like cowboy hats. I'm going to wear that. I like being goofy. I'm going to keep doing that. And I'm going to wear my shirts and I'm going to do whatever. And to me, I took being bullied and picked on and everything else in school. And it took a long time, but thank God I met this great group of guys in college who from them I learned that like, hey, when we pick on you, dude, that's because we love you. And nowadays, I don't just go right into picking on people. My wife does, and people love her. Me, I'm kind of like, I'll tiptoe a little bit and see what I can do. And then we'll get into it. But I'm the kind of person like, if you don't like, hit me with something really good within the first week or two, I don't know if we can be friends because I want you to like, yeah, get me with something. Let's do it. Because then I don't know what it is. I think then I can trust you. Whereas in high school and stuff like that, it was like people being very, very fake. And I know we were kids. I'm not judging that. I was the same way. I was very, very fake in high school, but it took a long time for me to figure out who I really was. And frankly, I'm still trying to figure that out. So, it's it's one of those things where you kind of take these things that come at you and flip them around, have a little fun with it. That's why I like subversive humor. You know, when it gets really dark, I find that really funny because it takes the power out of those terrible dark things that are coming at you. If you can laugh at that monster has no power over you.
I got a great one. I found a comedian last night, and
Mhm.
I hope I sent it to Erica. She would actually. She did hate it because I put it. I let her listen to it, but it's so bad
Yeah.
that it was so funny to me. Terrible, terrible, and maybe too soon. But I'll send it
Hey,
to you. I'll send it to
terrible
you.
is what you need, man. I think sometimes, thank God people are willing to go there. And I get it. People
Yeah.
are going to say, "Oh, that's tasteless," or "That, oh, that's not funny." But I go with the whole South Park line on it to
Right.
paraphrase them. Either it's all
Right.
okay or none of it's okay.
Well,
And
I mean, sometimes South Park had, I really hate that South Park's predictions were, I mean, Macho
yeah,
Man Randy Savage, I will never look at him the same again.
yeah,
And everybody, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go
yeah,
look it up. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's when Macho Man became a woman, it was great. It was wonderful. On South Park. On South
Yeah,
Park.
yeah.
So so with God Jots,
Yes, yes.
with your blog, it's kind of going through your journey,
Mm-hmm.
and then people. What's really cool about that too is you can go back and see where you were really making strides, and
Yeah,
then
and where
all of a
maybe I
sudden something
didn't hit it
happens.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
something
it's funny.
happens, and you go back, and it's like, oh, and then all of that. So it's really interesting, almost like I don't know, like not a devotional, but sort of a trajectory for
Yes, like a
people to
spiritual
see.
journal of a sort.
Yeah, that's what I mean. A journal.
Yeah, and I
So,
don't. I'm glad you brought that up because I could very easily go back to some of my earlier ones because I think I started. I think my first ones early on before I really started doing it regularly might have been 2015, 2016.
yeah,
I could go back to those and rewrite them from the point of view of where I'm at now and write it better or write it smarter or write it, I don't know, more correct or something. But I don't because I feel like that's for me part of the authenticity aspect is don't be disingenuous. And it's kind of like when people, if I got a YouTube video or something and somebody posts "you suck," I just delete it. Like you didn't
why?
take the time to say anything of any value. You obviously didn't like look into what this is. I don't expect you to like it, but at the very least, I'd expect you to like have an argument to a specific point. And if you aren't going to do that, then that to me means you're not being compassionate. So bye bye. Just I don't have time for that.
It's
And
really funny you say that.
yeah,
So I've
but if you
I've
hit me
been
with a good argument or something mean, but there's at least some you put some time into that and some effort, yeah, I might engage with that because you never know, you could get a win out of it.
so I was telling you last night, a lot of the social media stuff I've done since I've started the show. Actually, I always use social media to promote something.
Yeah.
So, and that's really
Mhm.
what we all did back in the day. It was, you know, I just figured, and it wasn't some marketing strategy. I just figured
Yeah.
like all of these people, are putting their cameras up, in the best frame and
It's all we're all like living
just
in little
showing.
reality shows or
Oh
something.
yeah, man, it's
Yeah.
little reality shows, and everybody's, got a Rolls Royce and a
Mhm.
Lamborghini. So I figured, here you go. This is
Mhm.
what I'm going to do. And I'm actually doing it, you know, brought people on the journey and all of that. But little by little and more. I like that. Little by little, then more and more.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah, write that down.
I think that's good. Um, it became a little commercial. Everything I did was a commercial. And then I come off as, hey, how are you doing? This and that. And I'm trying to stop that. I'm trying to veer away from it.
There's
But
nothing wrong though with having like a few. I come from, the wrestling world. So having a
sure.
couple little sayings that you do, like with me, I go, what's up, BFF? Let me tell you how it is. And then I move on.
Yeah. Well,
But having little things like that, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, but they were just commercials all the time.
Yeah.
And there's room for that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's room for that. Hey, catch the show on Wednesday. I got so and so coming on. I got Andrew Bowen. Hey, da da da. Mm-hmm. And there's room for that, and that's fine. But the more, well, anyway. So I started.
You have the same problem I have.
Well, I hated. Well, yeah, a little. I hated X. Twitter. I hated Twitter. Mm-hmm. I've had a Twitter since 2012.
Yeah.
We were just coming out with the album before it was even named. Mm-hmm. And my friend he's like, "Man, you got to have a Twitter," And I said, I don't want to do that. He's like, "No." So he made it for me.
Yeah.
And I've had it since 2012, but it was just a hellscape of just negative people and awful things. It was just terrible. It was a lot. And then it was bought. And what's funny is I don't know what happened. I just stumbled on there again. Mm-hmm. And I started reading, and then I started, putting different posts out. I forgot what they call them now. I guess posts. And I've been really vocal on that platform, probably too vocal. Sure. But at the same time, And I find that there's a lot of people that will say certain things for attention. Mm-hmm. And then there's a few people that try to debate me, and, they find out that they need a thesaurus. And I just, but it's been a lot of fun, but then it's also been very, it's hurt my heart a little bit, actually.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah.
And it was awful before. And it's really interesting now, but the authenticity, again, if you have something to say that's coming from a real place, it's going to get attention.
I wish we could be a little bit more civilized about it, but
that's the thing, and that's where I'm going. Is that we don't live in that world anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's incumbent upon us, however we decide to do it, to, if we're going to have a righteous indignation, if what we're upset about is correct, that's one thing. But, the whole compassion thing and coming here and all of that, I think we live in a time where there's people that are in our sphere that they are not interested in any of that. Mm-hmm. And they are using it as a way, in my opinion, either to exercise whatever's in them, or as a way to, be that person that, can say anything behind the veil of whatever profile picture it is, and whatever name they
that's
consider.
The thing is, two things. One, mind you, I was not always this way, but I want to say probably before COVID, I want to say is when I really changed about it. Now, this is not to say that I was running around saying mean things to people like behind my keyboard.
Right, of course.
But
totally
I definitely at a certain point made a decision for myself, and I said to myself, if you're going to respond to anyone, if you're going to respond to anyone, if you're going to jump in on a conversation, you make sure that the way you speak to that person is the way that you would speak to them in person. Don't talk to them like you've got some kind of free reign to say whatever you want and there's not going to be any repercussions. You need to talk to them like there would be repercussions. And I found that I jump in way less. And the second part of that too, and if I'm not jumping in, I probably didn't need to. because I'm not losing sleep over it. And the second thing is when people, so I do, like I said before, I do try and engage people when they have an argument, and try and see if that's an opportunity. I've won some people over, not necessarily to my side, but they see where I'm coming from and they
Right.
respect it. And they respect that I'm honest about it.
Right.
But I also acknowledge that I don't answer to these people. Just because somebody comes in and says, "Why do you think blah 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 blah?" or "Prove to me blah 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 blah," it's like, nah, don't need to. Like,
I
you're not
mean,
my boss. You're not my
yeah.
mom.
Well,
Like,
and
why?
the
What
it's
gives you
just
that
really,
authority? You know what I'm saying? So
well,
I also act the same way when I do stuff. I don't
I
have
think,
authority to make you tell me anything.
well, I think too, a lot of people, and I found this to be absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
It was either last night or the night before.
Yeah.
I got into this conversation with this Ukrainian guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my feelings about that.
Sure.
When I first came back to music through Christian music, the Slavic community really embraced me
Oh, that's awesome.
and puffed me a lot. And I love them. My engineer was Russian. My photographer was Ukrainian, or
Mm-hmm.
is. Um, my
One of my
guitar
songs
player is
is for a
Moldovan.
girl from Ukraine. So I
Yeah,
get it.
one of my guitar player, my little brother, he's
Mm-hmm.
Moldovan and Ukrainian. They had a pastor friend that we knew from, or that he knows. I've met a few times from.
Yeah.
Love the guy from Sacramento. They were back in Ukraine, and they were trying to conscript this, 60-year-old pastor. So in my view, we need peace in that region.
Yeah. We need. Yeah.
Now, I also understand. I understand the mentality
Mm-hmm.
too with both sides,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just tragic. But we got to stop the killing. We have to stop all that. But and really, the post it didn't have anything to do with it. It was a Ukrainian. Oh, it was. I was commenting on how JD Vance was walking with his toddler, and
Mm-hmm.
there were people yelling at him, and highly inappropriate, yelling at
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
daughter even. And then he decided, okay, fine, I'm going to talk to you. That never happens. You
Yeah.
never have that with any VP I've ever seen, or
Well, and
certainly any
certainly
president.
not with your
Well,
daughter.
well,
Like,
but but if they're walking and you're getting all of these things shouted at you,
yeah.
there is not a chance that anyone in those offices are going to stop and actually talk to those people.
Right. Yeah.
So he actually talked to him. I admired him for doing that. And I
Mm-hmm.
also, so this guy was trying to litigate his DD 214 and all this other BS. And we got into it, but we ended up having a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And it really was illuminating how the media has sort of switched this to where the peacemakers are the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the ones who want war, literally World War III,
Mm-hmm.
are somehow the righteous ones. I mean,
It's really weird.
as
It's really
well
weird.
as far as marketing goes, it's been brilliant. But I find
Follow the
that,
money. It's always about follow the money, and you'll
the money,
always
but
figure
the
out.
marketing, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, it ties back to, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but of principalities and powers of the air. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we forget that the words that we speak, as much as they can, need to reflect the mind of Christ.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do sometimes. I
It's
think
very hard to do.
the other thing
Do it up all the
too
time.
is I think that people, particularly online, are
Mhm.
ready, willing, and able to assume that you are just as angry or just as I don't know, unhinged as they are,
As they are. Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
so when they get when it's suddenly they find out you're not, and that we I had another conversation with a guy. He's a farmer in Nigeria. We were talking about events in South Africa and what things that are going on there. And they're assuming, based on the one post, that I'm some way.
Yeah.
We ended up having a conversation. It's like, no, we agree on more things than we don't. And so much so that we don't have to argue. We don't have to fight about this. The ones that are enabling this, pushing us, if we're going to put anything at anybody's doorstep, it needs to be theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, and I'm not saying that, it's hard to be, righteous and this and that when I see things happen in these countries where, Christians are, they're being beheaded, and not in a way that we would think, not in the way we think they did it in France, but with a club.
Well, and I mean, it would be awful when things are beheaded, but what really disturbs me is we're not even talking about that kind of stuff.
When we're seeing things going on in Syria and all of this, and because of that, it's like, oh my God, you get so mad about it. But then again, it comes back to, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but of principalities and powers of the air. And, I think we're getting into this time where sort of wishy-washy Christianity, if you want to call it that, is gone. I think that people are hungry for not just someone's truth, but the truth.
Yep.
They're hungry. They're thirsting for authenticity.
Well, and ironically, isn't that kind of the result of what happens when you try to divide a population, like say the United States has been divided politically, the way it's, like the end result is going to be people don't know what the truth is. So,
people are so tripping now. It's like the lie that we've been living with for decades. That seems normal. And the truth is the thing that feels like it's on an alternate timeline.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I see you doing your thing, and when I say your thing, I don't mean it facetiously or anything like that.
No, I get you.
Doing your thing on God Jots, where this is really an authentic journey. This is what I'm doing. This is what it's like, a live journal, and you're letting everyone in on your walk. You're not saying that, it's Reverend Ender Bowen. You're not saying that it's Pastor Ender Bowen. You're not saying that. You're saying, I'm a follower of Christ.
People call me that if they want to, but
but they shouldn't.
No, they shouldn't.
With all due respect, they shouldn't.
No.
But you are a follower of Christ, just like they are. We're all flawed. You're going to have your questions. You're going to have your opportunity to answer some of theirs, because maybe they're sort of earlier in their walk. It's so funny how people get so bent when they get called in love a baby Christian. It's, they feel like it's a knock on, them being a child, or they're not as far along. And the fact is that that's a great place to be.
Yeah.
Being a baby Christian, you get a chance to absorb things. You're still in wonderment when, when things happen, when God speaks. It's like, man, that's amazing. There's so many good things that accompany that moniker.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
It's kind of like being, that's why I kind of like the whole born again idea, because I mean, you can take it for what it is supposed to mean, but I kind of look at it more like, I'm a babe in the woods. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to look at it like, I'm trying to be as childlike about it as I possibly can. because I feel like if I'm, I don't know how to word this. Like, I know the truth is, but I feel like um, if I know it too hard, I'll miss things, and I'll take things for granted, if that makes any sense. Like,
and
I'm
and
not.
and and that feeling
Mhm.
is something that you're working. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
something
I don't
that
wanna
you're
put up
working
walls with
for.
it, I guess is what I'm trying to say is, that's why I never say this is my truth. I don't care if anybody uses that, but that's why I
I
don't
can't
say this
stand
is
it.
my truth.
That we cut that right there.
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't do
because
that.
to me, yeah, like, your truth, psychologically, as a human being, you're eventually going to say, "Well, if this is my truth, then everything else is a lie." Like,
Well, if that's your
yours
truth, what is the truth? Is what I
right.
hear.
So
Right? You know?
that's why I say, "You know what? Don't call it that." I'm not saying that it's anything other different, but just call it your story, because your story is
Right.
something by its
How about an
nature,
opinion?
or an opinion,
This is
yeah,
my
but at least
opinion. This is my experience. This
sure,
is my
but
right?
the reason I say story is because a story is meant to be told, it's meant to be heard, and just like any other story that's passed down, it's a little bit
Yeah.
malleable. It changes, right? It learns, it grows, it
Right.
becomes. A truth doesn't. A truth is hard and fast and it's done.
It
And
is
there's
what it
no growth
is.
there. It is what it is.
Right.
So we can talk about our stories, we can talk about the truth. But we like to say something is your truth. I think it means well, but I think it's psychologically part of what messes with our heads. Like,
So bad. I agree with you
yeah,
completely.
yeah, and I think we
Yeah.
just need to be careful about stuff like that, you know?
Well, I think God Jots is wonderful.
Thank you, I
Again,
appreciate that.
I think seriously, I think that again, we're in a time where people are just tired of being lied to. They're
Mhm.
tired. They're just tired of it. I know I am.
I am too.
And they're also tired, right? And they're also tired of, putting their faith. And we
Mhm.
can say, well, they should have put their faith in God and this and that. But you know what? Um, if Moses would have faltered, I don't know if we'd be here. You know what I mean?
I think
Like,
that's where the compassion part comes in, man, because I mean, in many places, but, I kinda,
well, compassion for
touched
who? Well, wait a minute. Compassion for who?
for a person's experience because,
Right.
um, you know, it's very easy to sit there and say, "Oh, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong," right? But we don't know what they've been through. We don't know what their struggle has been. We don't know
Mm.
what what caused them to behave a certain way. And I think sometimes that's the thing that people miss is, when you act a certain way, why did you do that? We just come in there and go "Blah, blah, blah," and knock them
Right.
all about. But we
Well,
don't learn anything that way.
what I'm
Yeah.
talking about is someone who holds an office
Oh yeah, yeah.
and they and you know and they and again they falter. People are
Mhm.
human. They make mistakes. They are subject to all of that. So I'm not saying
Yeah.
that a pastor is somehow above it. However, they should strive to be.
Yes.
And so when people and I understand people putting their faith, like that's who they learn from. So
Yeah.
now they're starting to question everything they've learned. Like, is
Mhm.
everything like what if he told me this and it was a lie and he was this
Mhm.
and I hear um uh uh people critique pastors and their past and all of that all of the
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
But and again, it breeds division within the church. It makes us uh
Yeah.
fight within it.
Mhm.
But again, we're at a time where it's just pick your fighter kind of kind of idea.
Mhm. Mhm.
And with that there comes a lot of responsibility, a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility.
Mhm.
And so I think also the way in the times that we're in right now, God's
Mhm.
working on all of us and he's
Yep.
given us some more time to get it right.
Yep.
And it's just we're going to talk about the compassion of God This is part of his compassion. And sometimes, you know, and you're a parent, right?
Yep.
You're going to lead your daughter in a way into things that aren't going to hurt her, and you're going to protect her, and you're going to, you know, well, God's doing the same with us. And sometimes no doesn't feel good.
No, no, indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes no doesn't feel good. But he's a good father. And what I love about what you're doing is you're bringing people in your journey, and it's so good. It's so good. And so I really, you know, I hope people, you know, go to enderbowen.com and look up God Jots. And you're doing videos with the blogs too.
Yep.
Right.
Podcasts and everything.
And your podcast, my gosh, your podcast is, I think it's going to be big. I think it's going to be huge. I think one of the really cool things that's happening too is that I really feel like you're letting go of trying to find an audience. You're letting the Lord bring that audience to you.
Yeah.
And
And that's been
so
difficult
big.
because I'd really like that audience, but you know, I feel like the Lord told me to just talk about whatever the heck is going on, you know, in my journey, more or less, and what I'm getting out of it.
So big.
And you know, that's why when I write my articles, I don't do it with SEO in mind, because I really just sit there at the keyboard and let it, like, I have an idea what I might want to talk about. Something might have inspired me during the day or a week ago, and I'll sit down and go, what are we doing? And suddenly the hands get, like, if I got that connection, the hands are going, and it all comes out, and I'm like, you know, I'm human.
Like,
I might have translated something wrong, but you know what I'm saying?
It's like sometimes they'll give you something and you're like, I don't know.
I don't know how to word that.
Should I? Yeah, should we really put that out there? You know, I totally understand.
The hardest part was just doing the first one. Honestly, once I did the first one, now it's, you know, you and I talked last night about how I have this fear of being misunderstood, right?
Sure.
And I still do. But I think if I stick to what I believe is right, yeah, I mean, some people are going to misunderstand me, and I can't do anything about that. But
well, and here's the other thing too, is that, you know, again, well, and you will, but that's part of this journey.
That's exactly right. It is.
And so, you know, you're not coming on there as a pastor or a theologian. You're coming on there as a Christian who loves the Lord, who is trying to figure out all of this himself. And the other thing is too, and where I think you find freedom in what you're doing, is as you keep going and you see things that maybe you were wrong about, you know, maybe, you know, I know you will be the first one to go, wait a minute, I was wrong about that.
Yeah. Oops.
And the thing, and the really cool thing about what you're doing is that because you're putting it out there online for everybody to read and for everybody to watch, you get a chance that not a whole lot of people get. And that is going back and saying, I was wrong about that. Here's where I've grown, and wow.
Yeah. I'm excited about that. Strangely, I'm excited about finding out where I was wrong, and like saying something about that, or maybe putting a comment at the end of that blog. Like, I'm not going to change this, but I am gonna write like a note at the bottom or something else that says, hey, you know, since this was written, blah, blah, blah. Or I might do a whole new article depending on whether or not there's enough there for me to say. But yeah, that's the thing is I'm definitely willing to do that, because I think if I am, then that's going to help other people who are, you know, afraid of that, or don't know how to navigate that. And I'm not saying I know how to navigate that, but if you see someone else trying desperately to navigate something, it's kind of like I always used to joke. I love to dance, right? I'm not trying to say I'm a great dancer or anything like that. I just, when the beat hits me, off I go. It's Some people it looks great. Some people it looks weird. I've got a lot of rhythm though. I started as a
When
drummer,
the
so I have a
beat
lot of
hits me, I have so much rhythm. Trust me, I do.
But I always used to joke that I was like, I was always the first one on, like at school dances and stuff. I was always the first one on the dance floor, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's because people were like, I'm gonna wait until that guy goes out there and then we can all have a good time because once he starts dancing, then we all can dance. But
You're right.
or if it was, let's wait till he gets out there so that when he looks like an idiot,
Right.
we
That
don't
was
look so
me.
ridiculous.
That was me. I was the first one out there to make
And I'm
sure
happy
that
to look like an idiot if it helps people grow.
Totally get it, man. I was the first one out there just to say it can't get worse than this.
Mm. Yeah. And that's why I always say, how people say dance like no one's watching?
Right.
I say dance like everyone's watching. Own it. Go out there and own it right in front of everyone. Because man, if you're that authentic about it, don't hide yourself. I think dancing is one of the most beautiful things in the world, no matter how good or bad you are at it. Because man, does that tell me a lot about you. If you go out there and you look like an idiot, but you're doing it in front of everyone, I want to be your best friend. Because chances are we're going to have a great time.
Well, I just, be careful if you're going to do the splits you're wearing slacks that may or may not come apart because they may see more authenticity than they expect.
Yes, that's when you see the real authentic. Yeah. Oh, you, sir, are very authentic.
You, sir, wow. Well, it's real.
I could make a joke there, but I'm going to let that one.
Please do. Yeah, no, I don't know. Probably good. Probably not. Ender, I know you got to get going. And thanks for you got you gave us a little bit more time, but man, I'm just so thrilled. I'm so happy you have an open invitation. I don't care if you want to come back next week. I don't care if you want to come back weekly. I think it'd be great.
I could do this all the time. And you know what's great is I've done a few different podcasts with different people, and most of the time that's how it feels. Like Gerard Longo at Underground Music Club. He's at South by Southwest this weekend. He got picked up to do some speaking there for that kind of stuff. And I'm like,
nice.
And so there's people that I can sit down and have a conversation with, and it's just the time flies.
It just flows, bro. I don't understand. Like, how in the world is it 7:34 right now? This is crazy. I'm like,
I feel like we just started. It just, the time flies. And the great thing is very much the same as, I talk about, I'm learning and growing through the whole process of what I'm doing on my websites, doing these podcasts. A lot of people come into these, and I'm not saying on your show necessarily, a lot of people come into these kind of being like, this is who I am, and I'm going to put it all out there, and nothing's going to change by the end of it because blah, blah, blah. I love that when I do these kinds of things, I always learn something new at the very least about myself. And whether that's because of something somebody said, or because of something that just triggered a thought in my mind, or because I see myself on the camera and go, I need to stop doing that. Little things like that, that I learn about myself. And, some people are kind of afraid of that. People don't want things about them to change. But I've learned, looking back over my life, that I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 4 years ago. And the more I think about things like that, I'm like, man, by the time I'm 65, I might be all right. I might be okay.
Ender, I doubt it. And I certainly hope
70 at least.
I don't want to,
buddy.
Bro. This is gonna sound so pretentious, but I heard this one saying,
pretentious is my middle name. Let's do it.
I heard this. Oh, that's what the P stands for. Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought, and I love it, and it just really spoke to me at the time and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, when I get to heaven, I want to be rang out, completely everything. I want to have given it to God. And I'm like, man, I want that too. Mm-hmm. I want that too.
Yep.
I am just hoping there's enough. I'm just hoping there's enough there to ring out in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm hoping my rag is I don't know. I hope there's something there. We'll see. We'll see. It
Yeah.
depends on who you ask, to be honest.
We'll have a
with you.
conversation about it once we're both up there and see how it went.
Yeah, and it could that oh gosh, what a conversation that is. I hope
Yeah.
I just want to make it. I do.
Mm.
I do. And
Yeah.
God is so good. He's so gracious, and he's been such gosh, he's been marvelous.
Mm.
He really has, man. When we
Well,
started
it's
this
like,
show,
yeah.
well, real quick, I know you gotta go, but
Yeah, it's
screw
okay.
it.
It's okay. We're good.
So when we started the show, I start, and he's still very, very, very involved.
Mhm.
Steven Saldana, White Husky Films, and I started it, and I was so mad, because I had the show at my old company, and but at the same time, I told him this show has to be dedicated to God.
Yeah.
I don't really care who we have on because I know a lot of people and he knows a lot of people. And so I know we'd
Yeah.
have guests. That's not the problem. But I prayed, I said, please let the people that come on feel comfortable enough to share their story.
Yeah.
And, it's a career show, sure. But we don't realize that, what we do doesn't necessarily dictate who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's what
Mm-hmm.
we do. And we are who we are, and we happen to do this.
Yeah.
And what made this person make this amount of money and be successful here and this and that. And I was like, Lord, this is your show. Do with it what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And people have gotten way more personal than they ever have on any other interview.
Yeah.
They've been very open about their faith, and they've been very open about what got them to the place. And it's not trite.
Yeah.
Any other show, they say, no, I'm not picking out anyone in particular, but we've had a lot of CEOs on, and a lot of them say, well, I worked hard, I had dedication, I had a good family, I made the right decisions, I learned from the bad decisions, and all of that.
Yeah.
All of them, man, all of them have said, to paraphrase all of them, if it wasn't for the Lord, I'd be nowhere. If it wasn't for God, I'd be nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's not some sort of ephemeral God. It is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one that created everything that lives, breathes, moves, and has its being. It's that one. It's the one who sent his son, died on a cross, and rose on the third day to seal the deal. I mean, that's who it is. And I didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And then that affirmed with me, for so many years. And we grew up we're close in age. You look way better than I do. Oh, not even going there. But we grew up in the same generation. And,
Mm-hmm.
it was always accepting everyone and doing that. That's fine. I don't look, people do what they do. It's not between me, it's between them and God. And, that's their deal. But it wasn't just accepting them, it was rejecting or stifling who I am.
Right.
I have to hide the fact that I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I have to hide that because it's going to offend somebody. Man, miss me with all of that. I'm good.
Yeah.
And when
I
we
went through
came
that
back on
experience
this,
as well.
real quick, when we came back on
Yeah.
this next season, I said, not that and again, from the moment we started this show, I said it was dedicated to God. But when we came back this next season, because I really do feel like we have, limited time. Now, whether we do or whether we don't, doesn't matter. We have limited time. All of us have the amount of time that God gave us, whether it's, 100 years, 1,000, whatever.
Right.
But I'm over it. I'm not even coming close to your group putting my light under a bushel.
Yeah.
Oh no. And if I come close to that, no, then I got to go ask somebody. And so I just, again, love what you're doing. And
Appreciate
it also speaks to, you know what? Hold on, man. Hold steady. We're just going to go into the final segment. Where's my final segment stuff? Where's my, oh, here we go. It's so funny, man. It's been quite a few days. Stick around. We are going to be back. Do you mind coming back for this?
Yeah.
May as well. You're already late for whatever you were supposed to be on time for. So, hold steady. We'll be right back. Ender Bowen, I really dig the new countdown music. That wasn't like that last week. Oh. Brother, thank you so very much for coming on. I wanted to tell you this before we get into final thoughts. Is I had an old professor of mine tell me this story. He was one summer in college. He worked at a bank, and the bank manager, there were like 12 of them that were hired over the summer, and all they did was handle money, right? All they did, they smelled it, they counted it. Endless counting, all denominations. This is a 1. Now this is a 5 and a 10. This is like all of that. Yeah. And they would, like, again, count it, feel it, smell it, all of that. So the training was 2 weeks. And by the end of it, all of them, they didn't want to ask the guy a question because he was very, not drill sergeant-y, but in a banker kind of way.
Yeah, I got you.
And so he finally raised his hand one day and he said, Mr. Jones, when are we going to handle counterfeit money? And he said, you won't. And the whole class, because that's what they had been talking amongst each other about. The whole class was like, what? Like, oh, and he said that the room kind of went, oh, and then he asked, and then he goes, well, why? He said, there's really no need to, right? Because once you know what the real feels like, you'll never be fooled by the counterfeit. And so that's where we are now. Once we know what the real feels like, we'll never be fooled by the counterfeit. You want to talk about authenticity? I love it. I love what you're doing. You're letting people into a very personal. The CEO I just interviewed, Carl Herberger. God, what a story. We'll talk offline about that. What an incredible story. That guy, gosh, I love him so much. Great guy. He told me, he was like, I've never gotten this personal.
Oh, wow.
And that's the way it is. I mean, the guy's been interviewed by CNN and Bloomberg, New York Times reaches out for him.
That's a compliment to you, the way you're letting the Spirit move through you and do that.
It's all God.
It is. But you know what I'm saying.
That.
Yeah.
I do. And that means the world to me, bro. Thank you. But thank you. But in addition to that, I gotta stop saying but. And in addition to that, what you're doing is uncommon. People don't do that. They don't talk about their walk. They talk, you know what I mean? So by you doing that with God Jots, I think the Lord is really going to work for you. I think you're going to bring a lot of people to the Lord. So kudos for that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So on the more than welcome. And again, anytime you want to come on, you can come on weekly. We'll even do a Tuesday show if you want to. You can come on anytime you want to. What do you think? How do I put this? What do we need to be praying for in your estimation to talk to people that are dead set in their division? How do I say it? They're so set in their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They're good.
They're
with
unwilling
the
to listen to anything at all.
Unwilling at all.
I mean,
how should we be praying to talk to those people?
I think it's a couple different things. You could go the standard, like, soften their hearts. But I think the way we should be praying is give them patience and give them the ears to actually hear what we're saying, where, you know what I'm saying? Like, as individuals. And I say that because one of the big things I talk about is we've been set in these little tribes of, oh, you're a conservative, so you think like this. So it doesn't matter if you're John, Samantha, or Mary, like, you're all the same person to me. I'm going to throw you in that bin. Have at it. We do the same, with liberals. We do it, whoever, name it, right? Because we've been set into these divisions by the powers that be. And so when anyone comes at us, we take them as that thing, that tribe that we know that they're a part of, right? And I guess what I would pray for is, I would pray that people listen to the individual in front of them, not what CNN says they should be, not what Fox News says they should be, not any of that, right or wrong about any of those. I'm not even looking at it like that. The person in front of you is the person you need to be paying attention to and listening to and engaging with. And that's why I would say it's twofold, I guess. Pray that people are listening to the person in front of them, like listening to their heart and what they're really trying to do and say. And the second part is, go talk to people, like individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about this thing of extending your proximity. Like, why is it, if I don't know, say my brother is gay, why is I love him so much, understand him so much? Or, well, actually, let's say he's a completely different political view, right? Why is it I give him a pass? Why is it I go, well, yeah, but he's got a good heart and I know where he's coming from. But then the person over there, I'm going to go, no, I don't like that person because they believe the same thing my brother does, but I know my brother. The reason for that is proximity. You grew up with this person. You've been around this person. You don't love them because you have to. You love them because you've been around them this whole time and you know them that well. So I always say, extend your proximity of knowing people. And the more you do that, the more you're willing to chase that. It's not about hunting people down and changing their minds. It's about you getting to know them, and through that, teaching them how they can get to know you. And first of all, you've already done something that's very godlike, which is getting to know a person, really know them like God knows them, as close as you can. And I think the rest follows from that. Like, and I'm not even talking about converting people or anything. I think the more we just do that, the less we have to worry about that, because it's all just going to happen. It's all just going to come through. And I know that sounds magical and weird, but I believe in magic. I believe in the magic of the Lord. I've seen it work. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in my life. I've seen it happen in other people's lives. And so, if we're really truly compassionate with each other, man, there's going to be some amazing magic that happens. And that's what I would pray for, is for people to just don't worry about the flag they're coming in with. Listen. And I think that alone could change so many lives.
Listen, I love that. Oh God, what a way to end this show, brother. That was really good.
That's my final thought.
That was your final thought.
Yeah.
Brother, stick around real quick. Don't go anywhere. But for everyone out there, thank you once again. Thank you guys so much for allowing us in your ears, in your cars, in your homes, at the coffee shop. Thank you. And we just love you to bits. So I just remembered I have not done a commercial this whole show. Oh my gosh. You know what? We're not going to do commercials for this one.
Okay.
That's amazing. That's pretty cool. Anyway, I was like, whoa, that's cool. guys know this. And I will say this for everybody at White Husky Films, Jane's Physical Therapy, He Bears in Louisiana. Make sure that you go and check them out. But just for everybody that I can't think of right now that's hitched their wagon to us. And of course, Ender Bowen, go to his website, enderbowen.com. Go everywhere music is downloaded, streamed, and all that. Get every single note of what he's put out there. And you will not be sorry. I think it's wonderful. Go to his website, get some merch. I cannot wait for my t-shirts. I do have to order them. So, there's that part. But for all of us, know this, that we love you and God bless you and let his face shine upon you and give you great peace. Be excellent to yourself and each other. And we will see you next week. All right, guys. Love you. Talk to you soon.